The room was cold, dark, quiet. Only the sound of chains moving slightly could be heard. The alien girl sat on the hard stone floor. Her wrists were tied with thick metal cuffs, her ankles too. A heavy chain ran from her neck to the wall behind her. She had not eaten in 2 days. Her lips were dry. Her hands were shaking. She was afraid. She did not know how many days she had been here. Maybe 10. Maybe 20. She had lost count. The last man who entered had kicked her just for coughing, too loud. The others just laughed. No one cared. She was nothing more than a broken slave girl now. Something to be used, something to be owned. Her once beautiful skin was now covered in dirt and bruises. Her hair was tangled. Her eyes, big and once bright, were now dull and filled with fear. Suddenly the door creaked open. She froze. Her body tensed. Her breath stopped. Footsteps, slow and heavy. Not like the guards, not like the ones who shouted or laughed. This one walked like someone older. Calm. The sound echoed in the small stone room. A man stepped in. He looked different. Not like the others. He was human, middle-aged, with a few gray hairs in his beard. He wore simple clothes, a long coat, boots, and a satchel. He didn't speak. He just stood there, looking at her. The girl's heart raced. She shut her eyes quickly. She had learned that looking at men could bring punishment. She pulled her knees to her chest and turned her face to the wall. Was he here to beat her, sell her, or just look? She heard the sound of something dropping to the floor near her. She flinched, but it wasn't a whip, it wasn't metal, it was soft. She opened one eye. A blanket lay in front of her. Clean, warm-looking. She stared at it like it was poison. Then came his voice. Calm, deep, kind. You must be freezing. The girl blinked. No one had spoken to her like that in a long time. Maybe never. The man did, not step closer. He simply sat down near the wall not too far from her. He did not try to touch her. He didn't even stare at her the way others did. He just sat quietly, resting his hands on his knees. The girl's hands gripped her chains tightly. Her mind screamed, "Don't trust him." But her body was cold. So cold. And the blanket looked warm. After a long silence, she slowly reached out. Her fingers shook as they touched the soft fabric. She pulled the blanket toward her, careful and slow, as if it might vanish. The man said nothing. She wrapped the blanket around her thin shoulders. Her eyes filled with tears, but she quickly wiped them away. Are you not going to hurt me?" she asked in a voice so soft it was almost a whisper. The man shook his head. "No, I'm not here to hurt you." "Then why are you here?" she asked again, confused. He took a deep breath. "I was sent to inspect the slaves, but I don't want one." "Then why this?" She held the blanket tighter. He looked at her with kind eyes. "Because you're still a person, and people deserve warmth." Her lips trembled. No one had said she was a person in so long. She lowered her head. "I don't understand you." "That's okay," he said gently. "You don't have to." For the next few minutes, they both sat in silence. The girl's breathing calmed. Her shaking stopped, just a little. She didn't trust him yet. But he hadn't yelled. He hadn't hit her. He had given her warmth. That was more than anyone else ever did. Before leaving, the man stood up. He looked at her one last time. "I come back tomorrow," he said quietly. "Why?" she asked. "To check if you're all right." Then he turned and left. The door closed behind him. The girl sat in the quiet once again. But something had changed. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel completely alone, and for the first time ever, she didn't cry after the door closed. She didn't sleep much that night. Even with the blanket wrapped around her and the cold a little softer now, her eyes stayed open. Her mind kept going back to the man, the human man with the kind eyes. No one had ever spoken to her like that. No one had ever left a blanket without demands. She kept staring at the door, waiting for it to open again. Waiting for someone else to come. Someone cruel, someone loud, but no one came. And when morning light finally crept through the cracks in the wall, she was still there, awake, confused, afraid. Then she heard it again, the soft sound of boots. The lock clicked, the door creaked, her breath caught. He returned. Same man, same slow walk, no guards with him, no chains in hand, just the same bag over his shoulder, and something warm in a small tin cup. The smell hit her nose before anything else. Food. Her stomach cried, her mouth watered. But she didn't move. She didn't ask. He placed the cup on the floor, pushed it gently forward with his hand, then sat down again. Not too far, but not too close. It's warm, he said. It's sweet. It will help your body. She stared at the cup like it was a trick. Was this poison? Was he waiting for her to grab it like an animal? Still, the smell was too much. Slowly, she leaned forward and took the cup with both hands. It was warm. She drank, and, for the first time in forever, something sweet touched her tongue. Her hands trembled. She had to stop to keep from spilling it. But she finished it. All of it. She didn't say thank you. Not because she didn't want to, but because she forgot how. The man simply nodded. Then he spoke again. Quietly. Gently. What's your name? She froze. My name? Yes. Her lips moved, but no words came out. Then finally, in a voice so soft it was almost broken, I don't remember. The man looked sad, but not surprised. I'm Rourke, he said. I used to be a soldier. Now, I fix machines. She looked at him for the first time. Not fully, just a glance. You're not like the others, she whispered. No, he said. I don't believe in cages. Then why are you here? She asked, her voice shaking. I came to find something worth saving, he replied. Slaves are not worth saving. He leaned forward just a little. You're not a slave, he said. You're someone they broke, but broken things can still be fixed. Her eyes widened. No one had ever said that before. No one had ever called her someone. She pulled the blanket tighter. I don't know how to be anything else. You don't have to know now, he said. Just don't give up. There was silence again, but not the cold kind. This time, it felt different, like calm after a storm. Then, she asked a question she never thought she'd ask anyone again. Will you come back tomorrow? Rourke smiled. I will. He stood and walked to the door. But before leaving, he paused. Next time, I'll bring you a name. She blinked. What? You can borrow one until yours returns. And with that, he was gone. The door closed, behind him, but this time she didn't watch it with fear. This time she looked at the empty tin cup in her hands. Warmth, kindness, a name. What was he doing to her? Why was she starting to believe him? For 3 days he came back. Every time he brought something small, a warm drink, a soft fruit, a piece of bread, and every time he sat without touching her, without asking anything in return. The girl no longer flinched when she heard his footsteps. She even looked up when he walked in. Just for a second, but it was a beginning. He never asked questions that made her feel shame. He never laughed. He never called her slave. Instead, he talked about the sky. The moons looked orange last night, he had said once. Reminded me of fire, but gentler. She had never looked at the moons. Not since she was taken. She had forgotten they even existed. But now, she wanted to see them again. Then on the 4th day, everything changed. The footsteps came again, The door opened, but this time he didn't bring food. He didn't sit down. He walked over to the cell gate and held a key in his hand. She stared at him in confusion. Her arms tightened around her blanket. He didn't speak. With a click, the gate unlocked. Her heart dropped. No, 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 no. She scrambled backward into the corner, shaking her head. The blanket slipped off her shoulder. Her eyes filled with tears. "Please don't sell me," she said quickly. "I'll behave. I'll clean. I'll listen. Don't send me away." Rourke froze. His face twisted, not in anger but pain. "I'm not selling you," he said softly. She didn't believe him. She had heard those words before. Every time a new master came. Every time someone smiled before taking her somewhere worse. I can't go back to the pens," she said, her voice cracking. "Don't send me to the mines. Please, I won't survive." "I'm not taking you anywhere," he said again, more gently now. "I'm opening the door. That's all." She looked at the open gate. He had stepped back. He wasn't reaching for her. He wasn't pointing a weapon. The door was open, but he wasn't forcing her to leave. "You're free to walk out," he said, "or stay. It's your choice." Her breathing was fast. Her eyes darted between him and the gate. She didn't understand. No one ever gave her choices. "Is this a trick?" she whispered. "Is someone watching?" "No one's watching," Rourke said. "I just thought you might want to see the sun again." The sun. She hadn't seen it in... She didn't even remember how long. Her bare feet slowly touched the floor. One small step, then another. She reached the edge of the cell where the gate stood wide open. Then she stopped. She looked at him. Really looked this time. He wasn't holding anything. Not chains. Not collars. Not keys. Only his own hands. Slowly, shaking, she stepped out. For a second she thought the walls might fall, or alarms would sound, or guards would come running. But nothing happened. Just quiet. Soft sunlight came through a crack in the outer door. It touched the ground like a golden ribbon. She stood in it, and for the first time in years, felt its warmth on her face. Her eyes closed. Her arms dropped to her sides, and she cried. Not from pain, not from fear, from something new, something she couldn't name yet. Rourke didn't move. He didn't speak. He just let her feel it. After a long silence, she looked at him and whispered, "Why?" He tilted his head. "Why what? Why are you doing this?" He gave her the smallest smile. "Because someone should have done it a long time ago." She didn't run, even with the gate open, even with no guards in sight. She had taken only 5 steps outside the cell, then sat down against the cold wall where she could still see him. And he didn't speak. He just lit a small fire. It was quiet, peaceful, strange. The sound of firewood crackling, the scent of something cooking, simple, soft-smelling, a mix of bread and herbs. Her nose twitched. Her body leaned forward without her knowing it. Rourke stirred a small pot over the flames, then slowly filled a wooden bowl. He didn't hand it to her. He just set it down between them, on the ground, with a second spoon. She stared at it. Steam rose into the air. The smell wrapped around her like a hug she had forgotten existed. Her stomach growled loudly. Still, she hesitated. He didn't push, didn't talk. He simply began eating from his side, of the bowl, 1 bite, 2. She watched him. His calmness confused her. No commands, no tricks. Just food, fire, quiet company, and a bowl big enough for 2. She picked up the spoon. Her fingers shook, but the warmth of the soup touched her soul before it even reached her mouth. The first taste brought back something painful. A memory. A small kitchen. Her mother's hands. Laughter. Gone. Her throat tightened, but she swallowed it down, both the food and the tears. "Where did you learn to cook like this?" she asked, not sure why she was speaking at all. He glanced at her. "A long time ago, when I still had someone to cook for." Silence. She nodded once but didn't ask more. She didn't want to hurt him, not after what he had done for her. After the food, Rourke tossed a few more pieces of wood into the fire. Orange light danced across the walls. The cold was finally fading from her skin. She wrapped the blanket around her again, not just for warmth, but for safety. Then he surprised her, not with food, not with words, with music. He pulled a small old device from his coat pocket and clicked. It on a soft, gentle tune played, something old, earth music, something human. It wasn't loud, just enough to fill the room with sound that didn't hurt. The girl blinked, her fingers curled into the blanket. "I've never heard music like that," she whispered. "It's called a lullaby," he said. She lowered her eyes. "No one ever sang one to me." Rourke didn't say anything, but his silence wasn't empty. It was full of understanding. Her lips trembled. "Why are you being so kind to me?" He looked at the fire. "Because I've seen what happens when no one is." She didn't understand all his words, but she felt them, deep, real. She hugged her knees, pulling them close to her chest. "You don't even know me." "I don't need to," he said. "I can see enough." "What do you see?" He looked at her, really looked. "I see someone who's still fighting, even after they tried to take everything." Her chest ached. No one had ever seen that before. She covered her face. She didn't want to cry in front of him, but the tears came anyway. Quiet, hot, endless. She cried for the girl she used to be, for the life she lost, for the years in chains, and for the strange, kind man who brought fire, food, and the first music her soul had ever known. Rourke said nothing. He just placed a clean cloth beside her. She used it to wipe her tears. When her crying slowed, she looked at him with wet, tired eyes. "Can I stay here tonight?" He nodded once. "As long as you need." She lay down beside the fire, still shaking from emotion, not fear, and for the first time in years. She slept. Not as a slave, not as property, but as someone. She woke up to the smell of firewood, warmth. The blanket was still around her. Her body, though thin and weak, didn't shake like before. For the first time, she had slept through the night, without jerking awake from a nightmare. The man, Rourke, was outside the small room working on some tools. The door was half open, letting in soft light and the gentle sound of wind blowing across the barren land. She watched him for a while. He didn't look like a warrior. He didn't act like a master. But he felt safe. She sat up slowly, the blanket still clutched around her like armor. Her heart still didn't fully trust him, but something deeper inside did, something old and tired. Then she heard it, not the wind, not the fire, a deep, low humming, like engines. She stood quickly. Her instincts screamed. Rourke had already turned toward the sound. His hand reached for the side of his belt. Not a weapon, but a worn communicator. "Visitors?" He muttered, voice tight. But no one should have known she was here. No one but him. He stepped inside and shut the door gently, but fast. His eyes met hers. "Get behind the furnace," he said calmly. "Don't speak. Don't move." Her legs obeyed before her brain did. She crouched low, heart racing. The metal of the old furnace was warm against her skin. Moments later, a knock, loud, cruel, followed by laughter. 3 shadows outside, then a voice she knew, a voice from before. One that had shouted orders, one that had laughed when she cried. "We know she's in there, old man." The voice barked. Rourke didn't answer. The knock came again, harder, Open the damn door or we blast it open. The girl closed her eyes, shaking. They came for me. They always come back. But the next sound wasn't the door opening. It was Rourke's voice. Calm, sharp. You'll do no such thing. Silence. Then more shouting. She's stolen property, a slave. The buyer wants her returned. She's not property anymore, Rourke said. She's under my protection. Laughter. You? Protecting a thing like that? What's she worth to you? 10 credits? No, he replied. She's worth more than all of you put together. Something slammed against the door. A boot, a fist, a warning. Then, the first shot, a blast hit the door. Wood splintered. The metal frame bent. The girl screamed. Rourke drew his old plasma gun, aimed and fired through the open window. A scream outside, a second shot, more shouting, then silence. Dust filled the air. Smoke curled under the door. The girl crawled out from behind the furnace. Rourke, she cried. He was bleeding. A cut on his arm, burned fabric, smoke in his eyes, but still standing. They're running, he said, voice tight. I hit one. Scared the others. She stared at him, wide-eyed. You stood in front of them. He dropped the gun and leaned on the table, breathing hard. I told you, he whispered. No one takes you again. She ran to him, hands grabbing whatever cloth she could find. She pressed it against the bleeding wound. He didn't push her away. You shouldn't have done that, she said, tears welling. They'll come back. Let them. Why would you risk your life for me? She asked, voice breaking. He looked at her through blood and smoke. Because someone should have done it long ago. Her lips trembled. She had no words, only feelings. So many feelings that her body couldn't hold them. She pressed her forehead to his chest. I don't know how to thank you. You don't have to, he said softly. She shook her head. But I will. One day. And in that broken, burning room with blood on the floor and fire on the walls, something stronger than chains was born. Loyalty. His blood stained the cloth in her hands. It was dark, thick, and warm. She had never touched a human's blood before. She had seen others bleed, fellow slaves, even masters, but no one had ever bled for her. Rourke sat quietly on the floor now, leaning against the wall. His face was pale, his eyes were tired, but he didn't complain, not once. The wound on his side had stopped bleeding, but barely. She had wrapped it with every clean scrap of fabric she could find. Her hands moved fast, though her fingers shook. She wasn't a healer, but she had to try. You're stupid, she whispered, voice cracking. Why did you do that? Rourke gave a weak smile. Bad habit. That's not funny. He closed his eyes, breathing slow. It was either Hasi or them taking you again. You could have died, she shouted. Then her voice fell. And I would have been alone again. The room fell silent. The fire was still burning softly in the corner. Outside, the wind had started to howl. Night was coming again, and so were her tears. She hated crying. It made her feel weak. But now, she didn't care. She sat beside him, her head against his shoulder. I've seen people die before, she said. Many, some in chains, some begging. No one ever cared. No one ever fought for us. Rourke didn't move, but he listened. I used to think, maybe we don't matter, she whispered. Maybe that's why they treat us like this. She turned her face toward him, her voice barely a breath. But then you came. Her tears dripped onto his coat. You were the first who cared. Rourke slowly raised one hand and placed it over hers. I care, he whispered. And not just because of what they did to you, but because of who you are. She frowned. I don't even know who I am. Then we'll find out, he said, eyes still closed. Together. The fire popped softly. She watched the shadows on the wall. She remembered the first time she saw him, how she had curled up, ready to be beaten, how her heart had expected only pain. And now, Here she was, kneeling beside him, crying not from fear but from something else. She had no words for it. Not yet, but it felt like hope. She stood up and walked to the corner. She returned with the small music device he had once used. She pressed the button. The lullaby started again. She placed it beside him, then sat cross-legged and watched over him, like he had watched over her, and when he drifted off to sleep, breathing slow and safe, she whispered softly, "You saved me from more than chains." Hours passed. The night was quiet. She didn't sleep. Instead, she sat near the door, holding the old plasma gun in her lap. Her eyes watched every shadow. Every sound made her grip tighten. But she didn't run, she didn't hide. She was guarding him now. She was no longer the girl shaking in chains. Not tonight. When morning came, sunlight touched the side of Rourke's face. He opened his eyes slowly, and saw her still there, awake, alert, silent. "You didn't sleep?" he asked, voice dry. "I did what you did," she replied softly. "I stayed. I protected." He tried to sit up, groaned. She was at his side instantly, helping him lean. He smiled. "You're stronger than they ever saw." She looked away. "Only because you saw me first." The snow had melted outside the workshop. It wasn't much, just a small patch of ground warmed by the rising sun. But to her, it felt like a sign. Life could grow again. So could she. Rourke was healing. Slowly. He still walked with a limp and sometimes winced when he moved, but each day he grew stronger, and every day she stayed. Not because she had to, not because of chains, but because she wanted to. She had started cleaning the dusty shelves, fixing old tools, cooking meals the way he liked even though she barely knew how. She would laugh sometimes, real, honest laughter, when something burned or spilled. Rourke never got angry. He would just smile and say, "You're learning." And each time something warm bloomed in her chest. One afternoon she stepped outside alone for the first time. The wind wasn't cruel anymore. She stood on the hill behind the house and stared up at the sky. 2 moons floated above, silver and pale, blue. She smiled. "I forgot how big the sky is," she whispered to herself. She closed her eyes and stretched her arms wide. For the first time in years, she felt free, truly free. Not just from chains, but from fear. That evening she made stew, real. Stew this time, with soft bread and herbs Rourke had helped her find in the woods nearby. They sat near the fire, eating quietly. After a while he spoke. "You don't have to stay, you know." She looked up, surprised. He continued, his voice steady. "You're free to leave. There are places you could go. People who can help you start over." She stared at him for a long time, then slowly she shook her head. "No. No." She smiled, a small one, but real. "I don't want to leave." He blinked. "I want to stay here," she said. "Not because I'm scared. Not because I owe you." "Then why?" Her eyes glistened. "Because this is the first place I've ever been safe, and you're the first person who saw me as a person." Rourke didn't say anything for a while, then he stood, walked to a drawer, and returned with a small piece of paper. He handed it to her. "What's this?" she asked. "A name," he said. She unfolded the paper slowly. One word. Simple. Gentle. "Mira." She looked up at him. "I told you I'd bring you one," he said. "You don't have to take it, but I thought it suited you." She stared at the name for a long moment, then nodded. "Mira," she whispered. It felt strange, new, but not wrong. It felt right. She folded the paper and held it close. "I like it." He smiled. "Then it's yours." Later that night, they sat outside on the steps watching the stars appear one by one. Mira leaned her head gently on Rourke's shoulder. The fire behind them crackled softly. The wind was kind, and the stars above sparkled like tiny promises. She whispered, "Thank you for saving me." Rourke shook his head slowly. "You saved yourself," he said. "I just opened the door." She closed her eyes. "I'm never going back to that cage." "You never will." She turned her face toward him. "Will you let me stay? Not as your guest. Not as a slave, but as family?" Rourke placed his hand over hers and squeezed gently. "Welcome home, Mira." And so, the girl who once shook, in chains, now stood on her own, not owned, not broken, but free, not a slave, not alone.